everyone, this is Kerjims channel. Now we are back to our new episodes of 2 semi-running champions and comparison featured by Wild Rift, League of Legends versus the Mobile Legend Fying. But before that, please like and subscribe to my channel and don't forget to click the bell icon so you will be notified to our new next episode video. Let's do this!
Nautilus is a beefy melee tank, adept at disrupting enemies, initiating fights, and growing as a damage threat to all his opponents. Additionally, his ability to jungle or fight in a variety of lanes makes him an excellent addition to any team. Nautilus's passive is Staggering Blow. Nautilus's basic attacks deal bonus damage and briefly root his target in place. Staggering Blow can only affect a single champion once every few seconds, but Nautilus can switch targets to hit multiple enemies in succession. Dredgeline sends out a skill shot nuke that stops in the first enemy or terrain it hits. Upon hitting an enemy, it deals damage while both his target and Nautilus are pulled together. If Nautilus hits terrain instead, he is pulled to that location and the cooldown is much lower. Dredgeline functions as a great initiation, mobility, and escape tool. Thankfully, it fills these roles quite well even with only 1 point, so I take a rank in Dredgeline early, but max it last. Titan's Wrath places a damage-blocking shield on Nautilus for a few seconds. While the shield holds, Nautilus's basic attacks apply a large damage over time effect to his target and all surrounding enemies. Titan's Wrath deals the most damage of any of Nautilus's abilities as long as it holds, making him extremely scary if ignored. Because of this damage, I take it at level 1 when jungling, make sure to take a second point early, and consider maxing it somewhere between levels 9 and 13. Riptide explodes the area around Nautilus in a growing ring, damaging and slowing enemies caught in these explosions. Enemies can be hit multiple times by these explosions, but take reduced damage by the additional hits. The use of Riptide is great to damage and prevent the retreat of running enemies, especially because they'll hit the expanding explosions as they run. As his primary disruption tool, I take a point early and consider maxing it somewhere between levels 9 and 13. Nautilus's ultimate is Depth Charge. Nautilus fires a shockwave that chases the targeted enemy. Any enemies hit by the shockwave as it travels are damaged and knocked up. Once the shockwave reaches its intended target, he takes even more damage and is also stunned. Generally, Nautilus will want to aim at a target far in the back to damage and disrupt the most enemies possible. Nautilus is an exceptional ganking jungler, meaning that you should always look for lanes that you can gank. If you can help it, save Dredgeline. So I walk up and tag Sona with Riptide, Titan's Wrath, and Staggering Blow. Now I tag Caitlyn with Dredgeline into Staggering Blow. She's forced to flash if she doesn't want to tank Riptide. Now in turret range, I leave her and wait in the brush in case there are counterattacks. If your opponents see you coming and run, it's okay to lead with Dredgeline. I head in and hit Riptide. I charge after them and tag Caitlyn with Staggering Blow, allowing us to kill her as I flash away from the turret. For the second kill, I wander in to take one more turret shot and then run into the brush to recall. This gives Graves enough time to take down Sona before falling, and we come out ahead 2-1. Generally, after finishing Philosopher's Stone, you should be able to rely on it for mana regeneration. Once the Ancient Golem respawns, ping and call over a teammate to grab this buff. Keep track of how much damage it's taking, and once you've gotten it low enough, take a step back, stop attacking, and receive endless praise from your teammate. One of the best traits of Dredgeline is if you're aiming for a champion against a wall, you're guaranteed to pull yourself forward even if you miss. In teamfights, do everything you can to focus on squishy enemies near the back. I notice I can just barely tag Caitlyn with Dredgeline, which gives our Ziggs just enough space to land his combo, taking her down with Ignite. I pop Shirelia's Reverie to get him back to safety and notice the enemy Ziggs now available. I turn to cast Depth Charge and dive straight for him. Titan's Wrath keeps me safe as I hit Riptide on every single enemy, kill Ziggs, and flash to safety. Between the damage and disruption from Riptide while tanking all the damage from our opponents, my team also cleans up 2 more. Use Dredgeline's ability to hook terrain with a reduced cooldown to chase running champions. An immediate riptide and a staggering blow gives my team just enough time to chase him down and pick up the ace. In Dominion, Nautilus performs excellently with his team. The Crystal Scar's close quarters can also force you to take your time. Here as we chase Dr. Mundo by the refinery, I have to wait to clear the wall before tagging him with Dredgeline. This holds him in place long enough for us to pick up the kill and continue our offense. For runes, I take armor penetration marks, armor seals, magic resist per level glyphs, and gold generation quintessences. In Dominion, sub out the gold generation quintessences for movement speed. The goal here is to get very tanky while also dealing strong early game damage through staggering blow. My masteries are 0-21-9, focusing on being as tanky as possible, plus movement speed and cooldown reduction. If jungling, you want to make sure to grab reductions to minion damage and bladed armor in defense, plus increased neutral buff duration in utility. For summoner spells, Smite and Flash are great for jungling. When not jungling, sub out Smite for heal. In Classic, I want tankiness and cooldown reduction. I take Cloth Armor and 5 health potions to jungle. I rush Philosopher's Stone and Heart of Gold for extra gold income. Grab Ninja Tatty or Mercury Treads as required and expand to Aegis of the Legion and Shirelia's Reverie. Counter your opposition with items like Frozen Heart, Force of Nature, and Locket of the Iron Solarium. In Dominion, you'll have very similar build goals. Take upgraded boots as quickly as possible and add in similar items. Shirelia's Reverie, Frozen Heart, Force of Nature, Frozen Mallet, and Locket of the Iron Solarium.
To understand the legend of Nautilus, one must first know the man, or even the tallest of Tavern Tales agree, he was indeed a man. Though the waves have washed away the name he was born with, most remember Nautilus as no mere sailor, but as a salvage diver. Just beyond the southernmost reach of the Blue Flame Isles lies a graveyard of ships, rumored lost while searching for a blessed land, looking to trade wealth for immortality. On a fair day, their glittering hulls beckon from beneath the surface. Many crews sought divers to collect the lost fortune, and none could match the skill of the quick-sinking hulk of solid muscle that was Nautilus. With lungs that could steal the air from a galleon's sails, Nautilus preferred to free dive. Always bringing up plenty of gold and jewels for the crew, the man demanded no special wages. He asked only that the captain toss a coin overboard as they set out, honoring and appeasing the vast ocean. A sailor's superstition, to be sure, but many a sea-fearing crew made such offerings to ensure a safe return. Years of salvage depleted the easy treasure, each haul becoming less and less, until one day Nautilus's crew learned that their ship and working papers had been bought from under them. The dawn was scarlet the morning the new captain came aboard. Hailing from a foreign port, he brought with him a giant suit of brass and iron. He zeroed in on Nautilus. Indeed, he had purchased the command because of Nautilus. It was clear the captain was obsessed with a specific rank, one shrouded in darkness even on a fair day. The diving armor could withstand the pressures of the ocean floor far longer than any man, long enough to collect what was hidden in the abnormal murk. The crew agreed that working was better than starving, and Nautilus found himself vaulted into the suit, the wooden deck groaning under the load. Panic rose in his throat as he realized that they had nothing to pay the tithe. The foreign captain laughed as Nautilus was lowered into the water. He assured the crew that whatever the bearded lady was protecting would make them all rich beyond their wildest dreams. When Nautilus returned to the surface, they would make their silly sacrifice. As Nautilus sank, the light above dimmed, and all grew quiet. The man's own breath, the only sound echoing in the iron suit. Then something reached out from the depths. He was being pulled down, and for the first time, Nautilus felt liquid fear wrap itself around his heart. It was not treasure his captain sought, it was some slumbering eldritch power. Nautilus grabbed the anchor chain, his last connection to the world above, and hauled himself up even as the thing sought to drag him down. But the weight was too much. Just as his giant metal fingers were about to breach the surface, the chain snapped. Nautilus screamed within the suit, but none could hear him. He tumbled back into the inky maelstrom, clutching the sinking anchor in desperation. Dark tendrils enveloped him, and he could only watch as the dimming outline of his ship faded away. Then everything went blank. When Nautilus awoke on the ocean floor, he was something different. The darkness could no longer hurt him.
The great metal suit had become a seamless shell around him, concealing the bond that the primordial power had made with his spirit. Trapped in the sunless depths, he could remember only one thing: the new captain's broken promise. Nautilus vowed there and then that all would pay the ocean's tide. He would see to it himself. Driven ever forward by this thought, he trudged toward the shore. But by the time he reached Bilgewater, years had passed, and he could find no traces of his captain or crew. There was no life to which he could return, no revenge he could take. Instead, he returns to the sea, allowing his anger to surface on the greedy, gutting their ships with his mighty anchor. Sometimes, in the tumble of waves, distant memories of who he was push up above the waterline. But always, the man who is Nautilus stays drowned just below the surface.